Hey folks, in this video we're going to take a look at how we add a node to the front of a linked list. Now in the previous video we discussed implementing a linked list node struct in C, and then we populated with data and read that data back out. So we know that we now have a working node struct. So our next step is basically to figure out how we can construct lists from different nodes. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to say that we have a node that we've built and we want to add it to an existing list. So let's take a look at this diagram here. Right? This is the kind of the simplest operation we could have for basically changing the contents of a list. So over here we basically have our node, which is something maybe we've just constructed, right? So in the previous example we built a node and we populated with some data. So over here, right, we could say there is this node that has something in there. And then you may have this over here, right? Another basically variable, right? So when I have text here, right, this is indicating a variable. Another variable that basically is pointing at the front node or the first node, right, of a list, right? And so our task is, how do I make one list that has all three of these nodes in there, right? And so we're going to see how we can do that. Now, for this particular example, it's really not that complicated. So I need to basically adjust two things here. So first thing is I need to adjust my link coming out of the node 3. So the link from node 3 basically needs to be, well, right now it's set equal to null, right? So you notice in my diagram I have 3 here, and 3 really doesn't go anywhere, right? So I need to somehow adjust this so that 3 knows that 7 is the thing after that, right? Because it makes sense, right? This is our end goal over here on the right hand side, right? So we want to have something like this, right? We want to have something where I have the node 3 in the front, then 7 in the middle, and then 2 at the back. So I want to have something like that. So how do I connect things up? Well, my steps here, right, are going to be the following, right? So these are my steps basically to add a new node to the front of a linked list. So first of all, right, I've already constructed the node because I need to do that, right? I'll need to populate it with the right data. Now, how do I link it in there? This is how I link it in there. I'm going to go over here and basically say that I'm going to have well, in my picture, I'm going to add an arrow from this node over here, node 3, going over to node 7. Okay, that's what I want, right? I want a link to look something like that. Although that's not too well drawn. All right, so I want to have a link like that. Okay, that'll be maybe my step 1, right? That's step 1 basically is how do I update it? How do I make it so that 3 knows that 7 comes after it? That'll maybe be one step. And my second step, right, would be something like this, right? I need to basically update front, so instead of front looking at this as being the frontmost node, right? Instead of having that, what I want is I want front basically to know about 3 as the front, right? So that'll be basically my second thing that I need to do, right? I need to basically adjust the next unnode, and then I need to adjust the front to be the new front of the list. Now, if I do those 2 steps, I'll get this over here, which is, of course, right, my new adjusted list, right, which has the things that I want. That's my end goal, and so I'll get that, right, if I carry out those 2 steps. All right, so that's what we want to do. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump back to NetBeans and actually try doing that. Let's try implementing a function that can add to the front of a linked list. So here we are back in NetBeans. Let's try implementing this. So let me see. I'm going to add basically a function which takes in a node and then adds it to a list that I've perhaps been given. And there obviously are many variants of this, but we'll just start with what is effectively the simplest one. So what's going to be the name of this function? We'll call it addFront. That'll be a simple name. So I have my addFront. Now what do I do? Well, I need to know the parameters. I need to know the return type. Parameters can be something like this. Well, I need to have a contact node, right? So that'll be kind of the first argument I need to have, or the first parameter I need to have. So we'll call that struct contact node, and it'll be a pointer, right? Because all nodes basically are going to be pointers, right? They're going to be pointers basically to some memory somewhere that stores a node. So I'll need to have that, and I'll call that. I'll just call it node. Second thing I'll take in is I want to have the list I'm adding to. So struct contact node star of, and I'll call it front. So something like that. Okay, now I still need a return type. So let's see. For this, I'm going to write void for a moment, and we'll come back to it in a minute. So here I have this, right? This is what I want to implement. I want to implement this add front. Now, just for some reference, the way this would be used is something like this. I would go, for example, over here and do something like add front of. Let's see. Well, I need to have actually another variable as well. So let's see. Right now, what I have is basically the creation of a single linked list node. So that's cool. We also need to have a list to add it to, right? So probably I'll have to have another variable like this, contact node star list. I'll just set the equal to null because maybe it's just starting out. Okay, so I have that. How would my function look if I were trying to add that node to the list that I have? Well, it looks something like this. I would pass in first n as the first variable to be that thing that I want to add, and then list as the variable, as a list that I want to add it to. Okay, so that looks good. And I'm actually, just so I'm going to need to do this in the future. I'm going to rename this from N to N1 because it's going to be a pretty boring list unless we add multiple things to it. So we're going to have N2, N3, etc. later on. All right, so this is the way I want to be able to use it. Let's take a look. So inside, what I want to do is basically do those two steps that I talked about earlier on the slide. So first of all, I know that I need to connect node to the stuff that's already there. Now to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type node arrow next, right? That's the variable we created in that node, and we're going to set that equal to front. So front is basically this start of the list, right? It's a pointer to the first node in the list you're trying to add something to. Now that list that already exists, it's already out there somewhere, right? Or maybe it's even null, it doesn't really matter. But whatever it is, that's what you want to come after that node that you're adding, right? So in that case, what we'll do is we'll set that next to n equal to that thing that's our list we're adding to, right? So that's what our line there is doing. So that's our step one. So that looks pretty good. The second thing we want to do is basically update front to be looking at that new frontmost node. Before front was looking at whatever was the old front, now we have a new front. And so we do it like this. We basically say front equals node, meaning that front is now that node that we just added. So this is the second step that we talked about earlier. Now, we're not quite done yet though. So for this bit of code here, we still have a little bit of a potential issue. And actually I can maybe show you guys a little bit. Let's see. So I have this here. So this is to add to the front of a node, front of a list. And I can actually do the following. Let me see. I can maybe try to, we'll do printf on, well, I will borrow this line over here. So I'll borrow this line and we'll put in maybe, I don't know, list. So I'm going to put in a list here. So this should, in theory, right, print out the information for the first thing in that list, okay? So this is actually, should not work. So let's run it and see if we get a nice error or crash or out of a memory error. Let's see what we get. Let's try this out. Segfault. So this just does not work. So there's a problem somewhere. And the problem, which I can actually see, so let me actually, let's see, we'll go over here. We'll go to the debugger really quick. The problem is basically that if I go into the debugger and I can look at my program, right, this is freezing my program in place, you can notice that over in list is set equal to null, right? List is set equal to null after I call add front, right? So that's my issue. That's why it doesn't work. All right, so how do I fix this? Well, the problem is basically that this front equal node line doesn't change this list variable out here, right? Because this is a local scope variable, right? It's a parameter. I'm not ever updating list. List is the one over here. That's the one I want to update. So that right there is a little bit buggy. So what we want to do is fix this somehow. Probably the best way is going to be to change this to return the new start of the list that it's modifying. So I'm actually going to change the return type here. So this will now be a struct contact node star, right? So this add front will now can return a pointer to a new node. And then I'll update this over here to return front. Okay, so now you add you have these two arguments coming in, which is the new thing you want to add, and then the thing you're adding to, and then you get back to it right with that pointer to the head of that list that you've now updated with that new node. Right, that's how we have this built now. So let's see, we have that, and then we can go over here, and this will change a little bit. I'm going to change this to list equal add front. All right, let me go ahead and run this and see what we get. Hopefully I get some output. And there we go. We have our first entry right in that book being shown. Now let's actually add one more as well. So I will copy paste this. Let's see. I'm going to copy paste that code over here, and we'll call this basically N2, N2, N2. And let's see. That stuff can all stay the same. Let's see a name. What do I want to put in? I don't know. We're going to put test because otherwise I'm going to sit here all evening trying to figure out what name to do. And we'll go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so that's my second node. So what could I do here? I could do an add front of node 2. Now, if I run this, you can think about the picture in the back of your head. This basically adds a node, and this adds a node in front of it. So if I go and print out this, right? If I print out list, well, list is a pointer to the first thing in this linked list. So it should actually show me that most recently added thing. It should show me test and then 1, 2, 3, 4 if I run this. Okay, so I'll run this. Hopefully I get that. Okay, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, cool. One more additional test here. we're going to do this, but we're going to do list next, right? So I want to see that that Wonder Bread entry, right, is still inside of my contact list. So I'm going to add next there, and then next over here. So let's run this, and hopefully we get test and then Wonder Bread. All right, test and Wonder Bread, they're on the same line, but that's just because I didn't put in my /n's, right? So I should have /n over here, /n over here. All right, but anyways, it's still the output we're looking for, so it looks like we're good to go. We've constructed 2 nodes and add them to a linked list. All right, so that's all I got for this video. Hopefully you have some sort of idea now basically how you would add a new node to the front of a list in C.